Blood pressure. Morg's and Oshin's resting systolic blood pressure was about 150 mmHg. However, Evelyn's resting systolic sits at around 100 mmHg. Morg's systolic blood pressure decreases from about 150 to 70 at 8 minutes, and then increases back up to about 160 after 20 minutes. Evelyn's does the opposite as it rises from 100 to 150 in 10 minutes, and then down to around 60 after 20 minutes. Oshin's only shows 2 readings for both systolic and diastolic, so not much analysis is available. Morg's diastolic blood pressure starts at around 100 and then decreases to about 50 after 8 minutes, and then rises to around 75 after 60 minutes, and finally decreases to 50 after 20 minutes. Evelyn's diastolic starts at around 75, it then rises to about 85 after 10 minutes, and then decreases back to around 50 after 20 minutes. Lactate levels. Oshin's decreased from about 22 at 3 minutes down to about 8 in the time period of the 3rd to 12th minute, where it plateaued. Morg's started at 7, it then increased to 12 after 8 minutes, and then decreased back to 7 after 12 minutes. Similarly to Morg's, Evelyn's lactate level sharply increased from 4 to 13 in the first 3 minutes, but then decreased to 7 after 18 minutes. Borg scale. All 3 athletes have higher RPE rating at the end to when they started. However, only Oshin's rating was increasing the whole time, started at 6, increased gradually and consistently to 12 in 20 minutes. Evelyn's plateaued early and stayed around 10 to 12 throughout. Morg's rating increased consistently from 8 to 14 in the first 14 minutes, but once at 14, instead of plateauing, her rating decreased to 11 at 17 minutes where it stayed. Breathing rate. Morg's breathing rate plateaus in the first couple of minutes and stays between about 17 and 21 throughout. Evelyn's breathing rate practically doubles within the first 8 minutes and then decreases by 30 between 8 and 20 minutes, never reaching a plateau. Oshin's increases gradually throughout with an average increase of 5.6 per 4 minutes. Cardiovascular analysis. Our hypothesis for cardiovascular responses was a null hypothesis in which we expected the normative data below to occur. For the procedure, we decided to check for heart rate every minute with a heart rate monitor. We decided on every minute as it's an important stat for understanding if they are working in the correct zone, and it's also easy to measure. The normative data in this field would suggest that the client may experience a small increase pre-exercise. This is an anticipatory rise. For the first 1 to 2 minutes, the heart rate would increase dramatically and then plateau for the rest of the 20 minutes as the demand is being met. The average aerobic training zone would be 150 to 177 beats per minute. PTDirect.com confirms that as they state, the heart rate flattens after the initial rise in the first few minutes of exercise. For steady state to be achieved and maintained, the intensity of the exercise must remain constant. Overall, our results reflect the normative data correctly, as we saw the initial rise and then a steady plateau. For example, in our data, the average heart rate before exercise was 133 beats per minute. It increased on average by 12% to 149 beats per minute after the first minute, which agrees with the normative data. This increase in heart rate is due to chemoreceptors detecting an increased level of carbon dioxide in the bloodstream. As a cause of this detection, an impulse is sent from the medulla oblongata through the sympathetic nervous system, causing a secretion of norepinephrine. This stimulates the sinoatrial node, resulting in an increased heart rate. Cardiovascular analysis. Continued. At the 9th minute, the average heart rate was 160 beats per minute. At the 14th minute, the average was 166, and at the 18th minute, the average was 163 beats per minute. This also agrees with the normative data, as it displays a clear plateau, with the heart rate staying in the same numerical region for the duration. This plateau is due to the muscle's demand for oxygen being met that will allow continuous and efficient exercise, and also all the receptors detect no problems that require no oxygen to the muscles. Energy systems analysis. Our hypothesis for energy systems stated that we expected to see the aerobic system used with little to no presence of lactic acid in the bloodstream. This is because lactic acid is a byproduct of the anaerobic energy system, which would imply that they weren't working in the steady state. The presence of lactic acid was tested after 3 and 18 minutes within the bloodstream. We performed this with a lactate machine, which would find whether there was lactic acid in the bloodstream. Also, we used an oxygen saturation monitor to read the oxygen saturation every 2 minutes. The normative data in this field, found at Medscape.com, says that the normal blood lactate concentration in unstressed patients is 0.5 to 1 millimole per litre. Alongside this, at mattroberts.co.uk, it says during low intensity exercise, blood lactate levels will remain at near resting levels. The normative data for oxygen saturation is expected to stay around 95 to 100% at rest, and according to the University of Mississippi Medical Center, these numbers generally stay unchanged during moderate intensity exercise. In the most part, our results for oxygen saturation agree with the normative data, as all 3 clients stayed in the range of 95 to 100% throughout. However, Evelyn's at 18 minutes dropped to 67%. The fact this was such a drastic change may suggest it was an anomaly, which may be due to a fault in the data, as if her saturation was to be this low, her other statistics would match this. For example, her Borg rating of 11 and her breathing rating of 32 would suggest her oxygen saturation would be normal, as these other stats suggest she's working in a steady state. The lactate levels, however, were extremely different to the normative data. As opposed to staying in a similar region to when at rest, like stated in the normative data, 2 out of the 3 client levels decreased from the 3rd to the 18th minute, and the other client's lactate level had an increase of 59% from pre-exercise to the 8th minute. This could be an anomalous result due to emotional responses such as build-up of lactic acid due to anxiety. Breathing rate analysis. Our hypothesis for the respiratory responses was a null hypothesis, which included occurrences in the normative data. For the procedure, we chose to take the client's breathing rate every 4 minutes by physically counting their breaths. The normative data in this field, according to PT Direct, is the breathing up to steady state where the supply of oxygen and expulsion of carbon dioxide meets the demands of exercise. This implies there will be an early increase and then a plateau for the rest of the exercise. In regard to the early increase, our results reflect the normative data accurately. In the first 4 minutes, the average increase in the number of breaths was around 72%. The physiological reason for this increase is the fact that the body can't reach the demands of the exercise, so breathing rate increases to inspire more oxygen to get delivered to the working muscles and meet the demands, and more exhalation to expire more carbon dioxide, which is present due to aerobic respiration. The only client's data that reflected with the normative data in regards to after the increase was Morse's. We only saw plateau in hers, which stayed between 20 and 21 breaths per minute from the 8th to the 16th minute. According to Pearson School and fecolleges.co.uk, this happens after several minutes of aerobic exercise. Breathing continues to rise at a slower rate, levelling off while exercise intensity remains constant until exercise ends. Physiologically, this happened as the body is now supplying enough oxygen to meet the demands of the exercise, providing the working muscles with oxygenated blood. Evelyn did display a plateau from the 4th to 12th minute, in which her breathing rate stayed between around 28 to 32. However, we can't say her result reflected the normative data, as her breathing rate practically doubled within the first 8 minutes, and then decreases by 30 between 8 and 20 minutes, never properly reaching a plateau. Also, Oisin's results also don't reflect the normative data, as his breathing rate continued to increase throughout with an average increase of 5.6 every 4 minutes. However, we may say this result could be an anomaly, as his heart rate plateaued between 9 and 19 minutes, and his oxygen saturation stayed at 95 to 100% for the duration of his exercise. The potential reason for this anomaly could be due to the difficulty of physically reading someone's breaths. Do you accept your hypotheses? For the cardiovascular responses, I would accept the hypothesis, as the data consistently reflects the normative data in regards to increasing and then plateauing. The breathing rate, I would say I mostly accept the hypothesis, as we saw some plateaus and the initial increase. and the majority of the data we found against the normative data, I proved why they are most likely anomalies. For energy systems, I don't accept the hypothesis, as our data didn't reflect the null hypothesis, which is normative data, and there were too many inconsistencies. All the lactate level results for the majority were above the average by a large amount. Thank you.